here. So I'm Susan Hinchcliffe, I'm leader of Bradford, and of the leaders I'm the lead portfolio holder for transport. Kim, who are you?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Kim Groves, a councillor at Leeds City Council and lead member on public transport for West Yorkshire Combined Authority.
Yeah, I'm getting used to that myself, actually. But anyway, yeah. See, yes, apparently you opened the drawer down there. And,
yes.
There we go. We're getting into it. We're getting into it.
Yeah. Don't worry, thank you, Chair. Councillor Manisha Kaushik from Kirklees and Deputy on the WICA.
Thank you. We'll turn your microphone off. And we go to Councillor Alex Ross-Shaw.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Councillor Alex Ross-Shaw on Bradford Council. I'm the portfolio holder for regeneration planning and transport. Thank you.
Councillor Charlie Keith, Ward 21, Wakefield District Council. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Councillor Sahil Chowdhury, Bradford.
Councillor Eric Firth, Kirklees, Cabinet Member for Sustainable Transport.
Councillor Rizwana Jamil from Bradford Council.
Councillor Taj Salam, bus driver from Bradford.
Councillor Andy Dagon, Executive Member for Transport, City of York.
Councillor Colin Campbell, I'm a Leeds City Councillor. Can I just say, Chair, thank you, because in all my years on the council I've never sat on the front bench. Unfortunately, I'm a Liberal Democrat and this is the Labour front bench, which is a bit of a learning experience for me. Thank you, Chair.
Too much of an appetite for it, I'd say, in that case. Councillor.
Martin Bolt from Kirklees, Conservative Group Leader on the Transport Committee.
Right. Councillor Robert Thornber, and I'm from Collier Council.
Councillor Neil Buckley, I'm a Leeds City Councillor, and I'm in the same position as Colin, except obviously I'm a Conservative and these are the Labour benches normally. Thank you.
Councillor James Scullion, Deputy Leader of Calderdale Council and a Cabinet Member for Regeneration and Strategy.
Councillor Naveed Riaz from Bradford Council.
Lovely, thank you. So that's all the councillors, but we also have officers here who are going to support and advise us through the meeting. Helen?
Helen Ellerton, Interim Head of Transport Policy, Combined Authority.
Dave Pearson, Director of Transport and Property Services at the Combined Authority.
Dominic Martin, Clerk for the committee.
Lovely, thank you very much, everybody. So great to see some faces who I recognise, but also some new faces. Bear with me as we go through this. We've got 90 minutes, so a bit of a race to get to, 12, 13 items before the 12:30 restriction falls. So we must keep going with pace. So with that, apologies for absence. Have we got any apologies for absence?
We've got apologies from Councillor Homewood, Councillor Cunningham, Councillor Garbutt, Councillor Hayden, Mark Roberts and Simon Pringle. Chair.
Lovely, thank you very much. Any declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests? I'm not seeing any, but as always, if there's anything that occurs during the meeting, please do raise your hand and we'll declare it then. Next item is exempt information. I don't believe there is any. Yes?
Sorry, Chair. The declaration of interest, I mean, those that have actually already been recorded don't need to be declared again, do they? Because there are some items where buses are concerned, and I do work on buses.
Absolutely. I don't believe so. I think that's already registered, isn't it? Has everybody done their register of interest? Well, whatever, regardless, you introduce yourself as a bus driver as well as a council Taj Salam, so I think we'll just note that declaration of interest doubly this morning in that meeting. Thank you very much. And next is minutes of the meeting of the Transport Committee held on 12th of March 2021. It was a meeting which is an unofficial meeting because it wasn't in person and therefore we can't We can't approve those minutes, so they're just for noting, so if everybody notes those minutes.
Sorry, Chair.
Yep.
The meeting on the 12th of March 2021 was an official meeting.
Oh, right, okay.
The unofficial meetings minutes are at the end for information.
Forgive me. In that case, we can approve those minutes. So is everybody happy with those minutes of 12th of March and notes the others? Was that a yes? Was that a yes? Thank you very much. I'm seeing lots of nods around the chamber, so that's a yes for those minutes. And then moving on to the substantive items. Item 5, governance arrangements. So there's an item here, it looks quite bureaucratic, of course, but bureaucracy is important at the beginning of the year, so everybody knows what they do and who does what. Obviously, we've had some changes in the Combined Authority. We are a new mayoral Combined Authority, which is great news, which gives us more powers, more authority, more funding to do what we want in the region. Obviously, we'd like more, but that does mean, therefore, that each of the committees and the work streams we have also has to change and to be fit for the future. So, as I said at the outset of this, I'm going to be the lead transport portfolio holder, but ably assisted by Councillor Groves as lead member on public transport, which includes all the bus work, which we're going to come to later in the agenda, and also Councillor Koshik, who's going to do all the active travel work. And there's also quite a lot to do in terms of districts, and this item also talks about which of the members from each of the authorities is going to lead as district chair, and I have a list here, but we'll check them later in the meeting. And I think there's some working groups in here as well, which you'll be emailed about after this meeting to see which of those you'd be interested in getting involved with. There's active travel, which presumably Councillor Koshik is going to be involved in heavily, climate emergency, and I think there's a bus one as well, is that right? Yes, anything else? Obviously there's going to be review about this committee, which is important going forward because everything's been reviewed apart from this, so we need to involve you in that going forward. Anything else, Dave?
Yes, Chair. With regard to the review, I think members will have noted in the papers that the part of the new governance arrangements for the Combined Authority is to have a Transport Scrutiny Committee. So one of the things we will be looking at in the review is that the broad terms of reference for the Scrutiny Committee were approved by the Combined Authority last week. But obviously we'll need to work through the practical working arrangements between this committee and the Scrutiny Committee as part of the review. Thank you, Chair.
Do we know who's chairing that yet?
Yes, we do. And,
are we allowed to say?
And it's not in my head, but I...
All right, Councillor Bolt might know. Oh, wow, it's not going to be a surprise for us all then, in that case. Oh, well, we'll wait for notification from the Conservative benches then, in that case. But that is being set up, presumably, as we speak.
I can find it, but
it's fine. I'm sure there'll be a press release at some point. Okay, so any comments, questions on this item? Yes. Was it Councillor Buckley, sorry?
Yeah.
That's right.
It was just a question in terms of, and I'm assuming this is the right time to bring this up really under governance. And it just occurred to me that this meeting is obviously very strange. We're in the council chamber and there's no public presence at all. But normally, from now on, all being well, that won't be the case. We'll be back to a normal meeting with public sitting in and listening. And I just wondered, in terms of being completely open with people and being as transparent as possible, whether a public participation at the beginning of transport committees might not be a good idea.
First of all, I think this is live streamed, is it not?
It is live stream, Chair, and also we inform members of the public they were able to attend if they let us know in advance, but no requests were received.
Nobody wanted to come. But I think we are live streamed, so rest assured everything you say and we say today is live streamed. I think there is I believe in double devolution actually, and I believe there is a real strong role here for the district chairs to do that, exactly what you're talking about, public participation in the districts about services that are relevant to them. And obviously I know Councillor Charles Shallam better than the other district chairs, forgive me being from Bradford, but he may well want to comment on how that works in Bradford. But I would have thought that was the way to involve people in bus services that affect them in particular, I would have thought. I don't know what other people think. Councillor Groves.
Yeah, in terms of public participation in this meeting, I think it's always been viewed that because it's such a strategic meeting and because there's always been a lot of discussion input from members, and obviously you're nominated by your parties to participate, that you're actually bringing forward the views not of only your parties but of your communities as well and your groups. I think it'd be difficult to manage, and I think that's why we have the district committee meetings. But I think it's something that could be considered. But I would remind you that with the new transport scrutiny, that any member or member of the public will be able to probably raise a call-in if they've got any concerns.
Councillor, I've forgotten your name. Campbell, wasn't it? Councillor Campbell, sorry. Remembered correctly. Thank you, Councillor Campbell.
Actually, I'm not sure that really what Neil was saying. I think there are. I appreciate that the district subcommittees are perhaps the best forum for local issues, but I think there might well be occasions where an individual or more particularly a group would like to discuss strategic matters with the whole of all of us, and I think Neil's point about a brief period at the beginning of the meeting, I don't know what happens in Bradford, but I know in Leeds there is an opportunity for members of the public to address the council for 5-10 minutes. I don't think that's an unreasonable request. I'd support that because I think it does allow for strategic, and I think that's the important word, points to be raised with the whole of the authority.
Councillor Bolt, were you going to say a similar thing?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And again, reflecting in Kirklees at the start of Cabinet and all the meetings, there is the opportunity for public deputation or public questions. The issue, as you said, Chair, there's quite a lot to do at district levels, but we've only got 2 meetings, so if a member of the public wishes to raise something, they've got to wait till October as the first time to raise it, which then brings me on to a point that I'd noted. In giving that public participation, if we look at the terms of reference for the district subcommittees, it's in relation to the area of the council and local public transport functions. As a transport committee, we cover more than just public transport. Obviously, we've got active travel, which is a key issue in many areas. So, at the moment, the terms of reference don't mention that the public participation includes active travel or anything else that we're doing. Now, whether we can amend those terms of reference today because we're being asked to consider them and give consideration to concerns that members have had about better public engagement, because as we go forward with the bigger items that we're doing with buses and everything, we need to make sure that not only are we representing what people tell us, but the user groups and that can come and present to us if necessary.
Absolutely, thank you. I mean, I would suggest actually, I mean, I hear what you say, but sorry, Councillor Tashlaim, did you want to come in before I?
Well, Chair, I think it's not unreasonable to ask if members of the public can actually attend, but at the same time we've got local district consultation committees, and we have a very sort of good and active group there. People want to actually come on the district consultation committees, and we even changed the timings in consultation with that group to say, do you want it at 2 o'clock, do you want it at 3 o'clock, or do you want it at 5 o'clock? And we did that exercise. At the same time, it's not. I hear what Martin is saying, but I make it absolutely clear that if there is a burning issue, they can always contact me. We can always actually discuss that issue, because we are having these meetings more frequent than the district consultation committee meetings, and we can always bring those issues to this committee, because we are there as their representatives, and like Kim says, we are bringing those issues along. Regarding the active travel, I mean, we've got cycling groups, we've got walking groups that I'm constantly in contact with, so we can always bring those issues. It's imperative that we actually have members of the public coming here and giving us their views, but it's not that they always have to wait to the district consultation committee meetings.
Thank you. I mean, I just wonder, really, I'm sorry, Councillor Griffith, I just think we're doing a review, aren't we, of this committee, and I just think absolutely we all want to make sure the voice of the public are heard, and I think perhaps that's just something we take into the review. There's no point in doing sort of small amends now when we've got a wholesale review of this committee going on, I would suggest. But Councillor Grove, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I think it should be part of the review. I think, in fairness to the Transport Committee, it's the only committee that has district committees, so that we do try and reach out to the public. I think the profile of the district chair needs to be looked at, and actually how we communicate through the district chair. But I would remind members that the district we did change the district committee system. But it was so that you could take the strategic items out there, and the last district committees were attended by more people than we've ever had, and that's because the district chairs actually presented the whole of the connectivity strategy for West Yorkshire. But I think we should look at it through the review.
Absolutely. So it's an important part and strengthening part of what we do. Dave, did you have anything else to say before we close this item?
Yes, just 2 points of clarity, and clearly, based upon the discussion we just had, then obviously that could be looked at as part of the review. Just to go back to Councillor Bolt's point about the district subcommittees and the terms of reference, I think it's probably a technicality there, because as Councillor Slam said, they have and can discuss issues around active travel. I think the terms of reference are probably written that way because the statutory responsibilities of combined authority and its responsibilities around public transport are the reason why it's drafted that way, but that doesn't necessarily mean it narrows the focus. Just the other point of information, it's Councillor Parsons-Hulse, Calderdale Liberal Democrat councillor, who's the chair of the Transport Scrutiny Committee.
There you go. So I think that's been a useful debate. We're resetting how the Transport Committee works, so let's take that into account when we're looking at that as review arrangements, and I think that's a good point, a good discussion we've had today. Thank you. So with that, is there anything else that people want to note on this item before we move to voting, to recommendations? No?
Chair, we just need to formally approve the chairs of the District
Council.
Council.
So we've got to name these people. So Bradford, I think it's Councillor Taj Salam, who's the District Chair. I believe Wakefield, Councillor Garbett, did we say? Yeah. And Councillor Cunningham in Leeds, Councillor James Holmwood in Kirklees, I believe. And thank you. And Councillor Sutherland in Calderdale. Is that correct? So hopefully no any objections to those esteemed colleagues from across West Yorkshire. Lovely. Well, in that case, can we now move to the vote then? So the recommendations. Can I see all those in favour, please show? Thank you. That is carried. So moving on now to the next item on the agenda, which is a bus service improvement plan, which is quite exciting work actually, and something which, though, is going to require an awful lot more discussion and work in the months and indeed possibly years to come. Dave, did you want to start with this item?
I'm going to pass that to Helen.
Helen, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the paper sets out really an update, basically setting out what we need to do as part of the requirements from DfT. So you'll note that this paper is following the Combined Authority last week, which approved the notices to progress with the enhanced partnership and the assessment for franchising. So what we wanted to do with this paper really was set out what the bus service improvement plan would try and give some shape to that and a bit more of a timetable to sharing that shape with you ahead of its submission in October. So we are looking to do a Transport Committee workshop in early August to discuss the themes, outputs, outcomes in there, and in particular also what you want to see from the bus service improvement plan. And I think it's fair to say at this point that the bus service improvement plan is to set out our ambition for bus, and then we look at how we can deliver that through the enhanced partnership and the assessment for franchising thereafter. So I guess, are there any questions at this stage?
I'd like to bring Councillor Groves as well, so she's done a lot of work on bus services on this particular, over the years, how to improve them.
I think we're at a stage, obviously, we have to sign an enhanced partnership. The Mayor has signalled about the intent to start the work on franchising, but it's really important that people join this group so that we've got a collective responsibility. The bus will remain the biggest mover of people across West Yorkshire, and rather than the network has shrunk and we need to grow that network back, we need to look at different models, we need to look at fares, we need to look at ticketing, and we need to look at the key indicators that our bus operators will need to sign up to. So a really important piece of work, and yeah, looking forward to working with you all and with you, Chair, and obviously with Helen and Dave.
Thank you. I think the important thing, isn't it, is to improve the service of the people of West Yorkshire. So whatever model, operator model is chosen in the future, it has to work better than it does now. I think we'd all agree on that. Obviously, this is going to be subject to lots of discussion going forward, but any comments or questions on this? Councillor Buckley?
Thank you, Chair, and I'll try and be brief. I understand the time constraints, but I just had one or two questions, if I can, on this, please. And it was just to get a little bit of clarity, if possible, on the kind of course of action on this, because at the moment we've got the enhanced partnership proposal, and of course we're still in this situation where it's not clear how many passengers are going to come back to using the buses, or indeed when they're going to be encouraged to come back, and all that kind of thing. And I noticed if you look on page 34, 252627, and the report talks about more frequent buses, faster buses and more reliable buses, but then immediately it also talks about lower fares and flatter fares. And it just seems to me that there's an offer there of a better service at a lower price, and which just seemed to me a little bit strange, particularly not knowing the number of passengers who were going to come along. And then secondly, as I say, I'll try and keep this brief, the reference to the zebra papers, now that, I think that may be on the agenda later on, I'm not sure. But I just wondered whether, am I right in thinking that Wyker would own the buses and lease them to the bus company? And I wanted a little bit of clarity on what thinking has gone into the future on this. Will that be a trend? Will the bus company eventually not own buses? There's lots more there, but if some answers could be given to that, I'd be grateful. Thank you.
So, can I go to Councillor Bolt as well before we take answers, just for speed?
Thanks, Chair. Point of clarity, it may be a typo in 2.1, but it says the Mayor has pledged to bring buses back into public control. I thought I'd heard Tracy say during her campaign it was public ownership. Now, there is obviously a difference in control or ownership, so if that was clarified. And could we have sent out to us so the members can have a look, the terms of reference for the assessment into the franchise? I think it's about a £1 million that's been allocated to do an assessment. It'd be useful if members of this committee could see the terms of reference of that assessment. Thanks.
Thank you. So, first of all, I don't think the Mayor can make a decision on the future of the buses without this work going through. So I don't think, obviously, we all want a better bus service and we want some more control over our buses because we're not happy with how they're running at the moment. We want them to be better. And I think Councillor Groves will be able to talk to you about the enhanced partnership. I'll bring her in a minute. There is a paper later down in here about performance review of our buses and rail, and actually we seem to be bouncing back better here actually than other parts of the country from what I can see in bus service. So actually there is evidence that lots of people are coming back on the buses, albeit not quite at the same levels yet. I'll bring in Helen on the zebra thing, but before that I want to bring in Councillor Groves to address the bus issues that you raised there.
To Councillor Buckley's point, in terms of West Yorkshire's bucked the trend throughout COVID in terms of passenger numbers, and it's now up to 75%. So we know that obviously there is an appetite for the services, and they're growing back slowly. But again, I think we're one of the only places in the country to be getting those numbers back, and that is because of where people work and the industries that they're working in. Pre-COVID, what I would have said to you, Councillor Buckley, and this will return eventually, is that we had corridors, the Leeds-Bradford corridor, the Leeds to Wakefield corridor, Halifax to Huddersfield, where we simply couldn't get enough buses down those corridors and people were left stood at bus stops. And that was due to the absence of a mass transit system. So I think that it will come back. You're quite right about the fares. You know, we introduced the Young People's Fair and we'll be announcing another one in July, and we had a 31% growth. In terms of the fares capping and lower fares, so in terms of lower fares and attracting people back, Bristow is the only place that has had patronage growth pre-COVID. That was about 15%, and they have a flat fare system. The London model is a capping system, so we have to have those conversations about what will work for West Yorkshire, because if you're saying we want flat fares, that isn't capping. So we've got a lot of work to do through the Alliance. In terms of your answer to us owning the buses, the operators are part of the Zebra bid, and I think Ellen and Dave allude on that. But I suppose in terms of the right model, what I would say is I would really welcome your support in lobbying your own government. Why should it be that for us to take a service back, that we have to spend 24 million on a business case for franchising, 124 million around that for transition, as they have done in Manchester, and it take 5 years for people to have a decent service? We want that now, so I'll leave it there, Chair.
It is terribly bureaucratic, isn't it, the process is set out by government, and it has, surprised me going through all the papers and processes that actually that costs us money in the first place, doesn't it, really, before we actually get to better buses, which is what we all united to wanting. And Helen, did you want to come in on the zebra question? And it's not actual zebras, is it? I think for members at home must be aware that we're not investing in zebras for the region. It is actually buses we're talking about.
Thank you, Chair. So the zero emission bus bid will be submitted today. And it was circulated to Transport Committee for approval last Friday. We essentially it's in partnership with the operators. Each of the three main operators of the region, so Transdev, First and Arriva, are all part of this bid. They will purchase the buses, and they therefore bring significant match funding to our bid as part of that. The money from government only takes up to 75% of cost of buses and infrastructure. In addition to the buses that they are bringing to the bid, we are also looking to match fund a small number of buses in Calderdale and Kirklees to kind of help the whole offer of the zero emission buses across the region. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you very much. I think with just looking at the recommendations, the emergency funding for the buses, have we got more control over it this time than we've had before? Is it just the same, Dave?
Yeah, Chair, I'll clarify on that because that's quite a live issue at the moment. Just to go back to April of last year, and since April of last year, government have made available both to bus companies and to local transport authorities, including ourselves, additional funding that basically is there to bridge the gap between the lost revenue from people not travelling and the cost of operating a bus service. And whilst the bus service did shrink a little bit in the sort of deepest part of lockdown, it's largely operated to its sort of normal service levels throughout the pandemic. So that's been the arrangement. Locally, local transport authorities have, as part of their contribution to the funding of buses, have been continuing to pay bus companies concessionary fare payments at the rate that were being paid prior to the pandemic. So, and that's not an inconsiderable amount of money in terms of a local taxpayer's contribution to keeping the buses running. So all of that has been going on, and to a certain extent, with that comes a level of control and influence that is entirely appropriate and commensurate with the fact that it's taxpayers' money that's determining this. So throughout the pandemic, the Combined Authority and the bus companies, we sit down once a week. Councillor Grove's often involved in those discussions as well, just to understand where we are and what we're doing next, and to manage the bus network in accordance with in the context of the pandemic. We expect to hear next week what the next phase of that funding is going to be. And I think what government are looking for is, as restrictions start to ease, passengers start to come back, then there's a tapering amount of funding, but government are expected to continue to ask the Combined Authority to continue paying concessionary fare payments at previous rates, and in the new model, the arrangements which we expect is that the bus operators' claims for that funding will have to be sort of verified by the Combined Authority, so we make sure that during the recovery phase of buses after the COVID pandemic, that there is a level of joint working and that we are safeguarding the network. And one of the things that the Combined Authority approved last week and is set out in your report on 219 is that the priorities for the next 6 months being to maintain connectivity of communities served by buses and to maintain the integrity of the network. So clearly, we're writing this bus service improvement plan. We need a functioning and useful network to be able to base the improvements in that on. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So hopefully we'll all be able to push on that. It just sounds a bit daft, it all being divided, doesn't it? That half the money comes from Westminster directly to bus operators and half comes from us.
It's not ideal. I think it's expedient rather than the way you would organise it.
Okay. Okay, well, and obviously this is council taxpayers' money we're talking about going to the bus companies as well, isn't it, from our side? So it's money that is very well regarded by all the councillors in this chamber. Any more on that before we move on? Councillor Salam and Councillor Bolt.
Sorry, Jet. Yeah, I mean, all the funding, all the planning and everything else, but I think in 2.13, bullet point 3, which says improve operational delivery to provide the passenger with the service they can feel confident in using. And I think that's where it all hinges, is how do we actually make people confident that they can come back onto the bus, is safe, everything is, and they can have a service that actually turns up on time, is punctual, reliable, and affordable at the same time. So I think that's, the key issue here for us to actually consider going forward. We can plunge as much money as we want into services. If we don't plan it in the way that people can feel confident in the public services, then, we're not going to get the results that we're looking for. And at the end of the day, everything that we talked about in the last 3, 4, 5 years is about growing patronage. And I think we've got an opportunity now to actually make sure that we look at that as a core issue here.
Absolutely, Councillor Salam. Councillor Bolt, do you want to come back briefly?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I thought Taj were going to mention this, but the multimodal integration, the final bullet point on page 36, better integration of buses as part of the wider public transport network that supports sustainable travel. I think, could we insert sustainable and active travel? One of the things that's lacking in our transport at the moment is we've invested in cycle parking and encouraging people to walk to railway stations, but we're not seeing the same investment and provision at bus stations. So that, and it's not just bus stations, you should have bus hubs along the way. The one that I often use as an example is the 36 Harrogate to Leeds bus. Yeah. If that provides people with an effective means of getting in and out of Leeds, you should be able to cycle to a point, put your bike into a locker, and then get on the bus for the rest of the journey. And we should be looking at that for many points so that we are having proper integrated multimodal transport. So if we could have that sustainable and active travel and bear that in mind as we're developing bus stations. I know Heckman Wright Bus Hub is coming forward. Let's really practice what we are preaching to people.
I'm sure that's intended in the paper. I mean, that's very much at the forefront of everything we're doing at the moment as a combined authority. And in fact, I had a briefing earlier this week on Huddersfield and Dewsbury bus stations, which do have cycle ranks put in there, and really exciting plans for those 2 bus stations. So I think I don't think anybody objects to that, Councillor Bolt. So with that then, are we happy to accept the recommendations outlined there in number 10? Yep, lovely. All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. That is carried. Right, moving quickly on this sprint to rail update. And there's a lot happened in the meantime, actually, in terms of rail update. William Schaap's review, which we'll have to see how that pans out. But do you want to just briefly give us the edited highlights, Helen?
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. I will just pick out some of the brief. There's quite a lot in this paper, so I will just pick out briefly some key points in here. On each of the different sections. So just really with the William Schaap's review, obviously there is ongoing looking at what that means for us. But kind of the key kind of outcome on that and the next step around this is that we are going to establish a strategic rail partnership for which the Mayor will be the chair, and it will be with industry leaders and really help to shape kind of, or try and help to us input into shaping Great British Railways. And there is a meeting now scheduled for that later in July. So next in the paper around the New Stations Fund is just to note that we've been successful in the latest round of New Stations Fund that was announced, which was really good. We've received £5 million towards White Rose and £7 million towards Thorpe Park. There's still a funding gap for Thorpe Park, but that helps to work towards closing it. Next in that paper is the Integrated Rail Plan. It's just really to note that obviously we're still awaiting the Integrated Rail Plan to be published, and we're trying to do all we can to try and help that happen. But obviously that relates to a number of other things in the region, being particularly about HS2 Eastern Leg, but also Northern Powerhouse Rail and TransPennine route upgrade. And there's quite a lot of interplay around that at the moment, which you may want to pick up on. Next, I think really just the key is to just some updates really around the Leeds Area Improvement Plan and the Leeds existing station passenger plan programme, and it's really just to note that there is still a delay in funding from government, but Network Rail are currently stepping in to support that programme. But we, again, related to the Integrated Rail Plan, trying to move that forward. And then some kind of more items in there. Next, really around the East Coast Mainline consultation. It's just to note really that the consultation closes on the 5th of August, and we are currently working through our response to this. We do need to work through how with this committee we agree sign-off for that via the chair. We are assuming at the moment, but that response is currently in development. And then finally, there's just an update in there on where we are on TransPennine route update and the Transport Works Act order. And Dave, do you want to give an update on the position?
Yeah, thanks, Helen. I'll do that with my sort of property hat on for a minute. Just to make the committee aware, that obviously the committee have discussed the TransPennine route upgrade in the past, and we've sort of submitted the Combined Authorities response, which is very sort of positive and supportive to the TransPennine route upgrade. The technicality of the detail that Network Rail have proposed in terms of the Transport Works Act order involve a number of compulsory orders on land which the Combined Authority owns. This is largely due to the fact that the tunnel that goes underneath Huddersfield bus station will have some extensive works done to it, and therefore Network Rail have served us some notices on the bus station. We've raised some concerns in our response about that work, and they are technically an objection on those particular aspects of things. We're very supportive, obviously, as you have approved in this committee of the principle of the scheme, but we do need to reserve the position to be able to ensure ongoing negotiations with Network Rail about the works, and I believe Kirklees Council have similar issues about property along the route as well. So where we are right at this moment in time is that we will submit next week a statement of case to the inquiry process, which details the concerns, and we will at the same time continue discussions with Network Rail to get a technical solution which both safeguards the operation of the bus station, safeguards the Transforming Cities Fund project we have at the bus station, and enables the TransPennine route upgrade works to go unhindered as well. So it's a little bit of a technical objection, but it's one we felt we ought to do just to safeguard the position. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I mean, obviously, there's a lot in here. Obviously, from a Bradford point of view, just on an integrated rail plan, we're pushing really hard to try and get that published before the recess, which is 22nd of July, I think, so we're running out of time. But it is going to be really important to see how some major transport infrastructure, including Northern Powerhouse Rail, go through central Bradford, connects to the rest of the network. And obviously, as Bradford lead, you wouldn't expect me to do any less than to make sure we make our case to make sure that happens. Councillor Groves, did you want to come in on the White Rose Station and Thorpe Park Station? I know that's something you've been pushing for some time.
Yeah, we're obviously delighted in Leeds that, you know, the funding is finally secured for these, and it will make such a difference to people living in those parts of the city, especially the south parts of the city where we've not had that level of investment, and we you know, really welcome this station announcement. It will open opportunities for young people to get to the colleges across West Yorkshire and to travel further and farther. So really pleased. I would say the other thing I would like to add about Fort Park is, again, it's all tied to the integrated rail plan, and we do need 4-tracking east of Leeds. I think it's shocking actually that we're at a stage where with the Leeds work around the Leeds station, we know how crucial that is, not just to our West Yorkshire Rail Vision, but to the whole of the country, that, you know, we haven't got any funding for that, and we get to a stage where you run out of money. What type of planning is that? If we run out of money sat in this council, I tell you, we'd be ousted out. So we really need to move that on. And in terms of, Chair has mentioned MPR, HS2 East is important, the Transpennine upgrade is important, but our West Yorkshire Rail Vision is so important to our people. While we wait for the money for the tram to come along, you know, we've got the bus or the train. Sometimes I wonder, you know, with the climate change and the challenges we've got around that we might have to be going back to horses and carts in West Yorkshire if the government don't give us some funding. So hopefully everything will be moved on.
Thank you, Councillor Groves. I hope with the ambitions that we have, we will never be there, obviously. So we've got a lot of investment plans for the region, and we need government to back us, don't we, to actually achieve those, whether that's West Yorkshire Mass Transit, TRU, MPR, HS2. We can really make a step change for our economy in this region if we get the backing of government. So the IRP is is vital with that, really. Any questions, comments? Councillor Bolt.
Yeah, thanks. Just on that backing issue and Transpennine Route upgrade, Network Rail have been very clear when they've been to meetings in Kirklees that improving facilities at Deaton, Murfield and the new Ravensthorpe railway station rests with this authority and Kirklees. The abysmal lack of car parking at the new Ravensthorpe station, which is adjacent to a 4,000 house development, we've got about 3 car parking spaces. They're only providing like with like, and similar at Murfield railway station. During the period of the works, they're looking at possibly wanting to put a car park or a works yard on a floodplain. If they don't get that, they'll close the car park, which means that people won't be able to use the railway lines. But when you ask them about it, it's not Network Rail's responsibility. That's the combined authorities. So as part of the submission, is the combined authority looking at enhancing car parking provisions so we can get more people onto public transport?
So we've always treated car parks across the region next to stations as park and ride, if you like, really. I mean, that's a really quite important part of our strategy in expanding the network, in fact. I mean, Councillor Firth, I don't know if you have anything from Kirklees' point of view, but it sounds like it's a local thing that you need to take up with Kirklees and West Yorkshire Combined Authority, perhaps? No, absolutely. I'm afraid I don't know the detail of that, as you wouldn't expect me to. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Car parking is a major issue around the new stations that are planned to be built. I'm sure that if we and Kirklees and the Combined Authority can look at this, we're quite prepared to do so. Part of my other role is to look at small towns and regeneration. I'm sure that falls under that, Martin, and I'll be delighted to work with you on that issue. Okay.
I think it's a partnership approach. Big schemes like this are a massive partnership approach, so none of us can dodge it. We all have to work together to achieve the best outcome for the majority. Councillor de Gorn.
Yeah, given Councillor Bolt's previous comments, I would hope you're looking at car and cycle parking for these.
Chair,
that's a yes, presumably, Councillor Bolt.
As Andy knows, I used to work for a cycling charity as a cycling development officer. And part of that was working with Northern Rail, where we did enhance cycle parking at many stations. In fact, somebody asked why Murfield got more cycle parking than others, and Northern said it's because I was working with them. So yes, Andy, we are providing cycling.
Okay, fine. I'll skip over that. Anything else from anybody? Yes, Councillor Buckley.
Thank you, Chair. Just one brief question, actually. But I'll just say that Councillor Groves always speaks very amiably. but never loses the opportunity of having a go at the government. And when she talks about running out of money, I think the government ran out of money about 6 months ago. But anyway, my question was, on page 43, the report talks about 30 million trips at Leeds Station every year before COVID. And I just wondered what the figure was now. That's presumably down to 10. Do we have the figure, please?
Chair, in the item 9, there's a graph which sort of uses the station gates data to sort of extrapolate how many people are travelling on the train, essentially. So we're trying to use that as a bit of a proxy. But as I'm sure Councillor Buckley is aware and everybody's aware, we're talking about 20% of what we normally see around. But it is growing. But obviously there's somewhere to go yet.
So we're going to come to the performance paper, which we've already done a little bit during the meeting, so let's not quite go there yet. Was there anything else, Councillor Buckley? Can we just... Anything else? Lovely. OK. Well, Councillor Campbell. Sorry, Councillor Campbell, I missed you there.
Well, 2 points. I don't think Network Rail get the connection between car parking, cycle parking, even pedestrians and people getting on trains. I think they just assume that they magically appear at the station and get on the train. Can I just ask a question in relation to 238 on the report, the last bullet point? Am I clear in what this is saying? And it talks about a reduction in the number of through services to Edinburgh. Presumably that's the Leeds service, Edinburgh and Newcastle. And the long-term aim is in effect to stop that service and tell everybody they've got to get off at York and change. Is that what that's saying?
No. Chair, I think that's there was an increase in the number of trains between to Edinburgh as a number of operators have been using the East Coast Main Line. Transpanama Express being the one that's in recent years increased its number of trains to Edinburgh. I think the issue really that's been trying to be dealt with here is one of capacity, and I think one of the things that the rail industry is looking at and will continue to look at is the right provision there, because the old model of a sort of privatised railway is that if you run more trains on a route, then you got a bigger share of the revenue from that route, and I think there's a little bit of rationalisation going on at the moment.
So it's a consultation, and I would encourage everybody. I think there's something. Is it next week, 7th of July or something? Is it? I'd like everybody to go on that, actually, from LNER, if you want to lobby and say what you think about those timetable changes, because I'm not happy about them personally. I'm encouraging as many people as possible to go on that and give them your views. So please, can we circulate that so people can feed back to LNER? That'd be really helpful. Anything else from anybody? No? Lovely. Well, in that case, we just, it says recommendations, we note the report. So I think we note it, don't we? That's fine. So if we move on now to the next item, which is item 8, Leeds Public Transport Investment Programme Update, which has the lovely acronym of LIPTIP.
It does.
A LIPTIP.
Yes,
strips off the tongue.
Thank you, Chair. This is really here for your information. I'm happy to take any questions here. I think it's just worth noting that the Leeds Public Transport Investment Programme has a number of schemes which actually influence things that Transport Committee is responsible for, Leeds Bus Station, bus stop shelters, and what this report's doing is really just updating you on how it's changing those things. And two things I'd sort of pick out particularly. One is in the appendix, you'll see the colour-coded map of bus services in Leeds, and that's, we're in the process of actually rolling that out now, and we'll have an official launch of that in next month, or this month now. And that's a model which we will then extend into the rest of West Yorkshire. So it gives you early sight of what that looks like. And those of you in Leeds will start seeing this on the streets almost straight away. The second thing I'll just pull out of here, because it does affect the committee and the budgets the committee looks at, is the East Leeds Demand Responsive Transport pilot, where we're funding the purchase of electric buses from the capital programme, and a combination of developer funding and a little bit of underwriting by the tendered services budget is enabling a trial of demand responsive transport, which again we would see as being a model that we would roll out wider based upon the learning we get from the trial, and that service should start in September. So I'll stop there, Chair, and take any questions.
Thank you. I mean, obviously, this is a long-term programme. It's been going on for some time. Obviously, it's important we get Leeds right, because obviously it connects to the rest of the region. Any questions, comments? No? I think we're noting that as an update then in that case, are we? Yes, fine. So we note that, so we'll accept those recommendations. And a further report will be provided to Transport Committee, dating performance and future generations. Flexibus. Excellent. Super. Right. Well, in that case, move on to the next item, which I think, are we at performance yet? Lovely. Transport network update. Am I right?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a bit of a hitting you with statistics type of report. So members who were on the committee before will know that over the last year or so we've been giving you a COVID update in terms of the performance of the transport network, and we felt it useful to sort of expand that a little bit and to start giving you on a regular basis how the transport network is performing, because clearly the pandemic has had a very significant effect on the transport network. But obviously going forward, I think it's important the committee can see the statistics. So I'm not going to read the statistics out. I think the presentation of this report, we will refine and get a little bit more graphical as we go through, but I think it's useful to share with you. I think the headlines that bus and rail passengers are coming back slowly to the network, but clearly we're quite some way from the sort of numbers that we would normally see, and it may take some time to get there. I think road traffic use is returning quicker, so there are some concerns around that. The report also updates you on the periodic research we've been doing of people's attitudes to transport through the pandemic, because obviously that helps shape how we respond to it. So I'll stop, and there are probably lots of bits in there that people either today or in the future might want a little bit more clarity on.
So those charts look fabulous, but they are very small. I hope everybody's got very good eyesight.
They are, yes, apologies.
It's okay. So we could probably do something a bit more user-friendly and regular, couldn't we, really, to make sure that we're always looking at the same things.
Absolutely, yes.
And know what to look for, what's important to us, and that's something we probably need to have a wider conversation about. And obviously, performance is something that we've already referred to in this meeting at different points. Has anybody anything to raise in something else? Councillor Groves, did you have anything to note on this? Oh, we've already done performance, really, in previous discussions, Dave. Okay, fine. So in that case, yes, Councillor Salam.
Sorry, Chair. Just to actually highlight from personal experience that we've talked about young people actually being attracted to buses and us doing our bit in there. I mean, the under-19s fare structure, and that they can actually get on the bus without a young person's pass, has actually increased patronage in that sense, and I see from personal point of view that a lot of young people are actually now starting to use the bus. So I think that's something that's a positive. You know, talking about flat fares or fares of that nature may actually be the next thing that we could actually start talking about, because affordability is a core issue here. Reliability and affordability is the main issue here, but you know, that for me is a very much positive point, that young people are actually starting to use more buses than in the past.
Chair, just Councillor Salam's just reminded me that it's worth just making members aware. I mean, several meetings ago, the committee approved a fair deal for under-19s. We've held back on launching that for obvious reasons, but we have a launch event due at the end of this month, and the new flat fare, or simpler fare, because it's 3, and the cheaper M-Card products for young people will take effect from the 1st of August through the school summer holidays ahead of the return to term. So the committee's been looked at this quite a lot over the last year or so. So it's very good to see it. And as Councillor Slam says, and you can see in the numbers, that the young people aren't back completely to the numbers where they are. And obviously the pandemic disrupts their journeys to school a little bit, particularly at the moment. But yeah, that group of bus passengers are the ones that are growing fastest at the moment.
Thank you. I mean, certainly, you're absolutely right, Councillor Slam. Getting young people onto the buses is really gratifying, isn't it? And I know this committee, as you said, Dave, has done a lot of work on that and thinking about the right way of doing that. And Councillor Gross, did you want to just come in on that, specifically the flat fare? So you're the author of that, I know. Yeah. And I'll bring Councillor Bolt then.
Just really delighted that we've got this one over the line, and you know, actually I'm going to thank the operators, because obviously there's been a lot of negotiation, and we know that when we launched the My Day ticket, which was $2.79, and now we've got $2.17, we're now going down to $1.20. It's a significant drop, and we've got a 31% increase when we launched My Day ticket, so really looking forward to young people being able to get across West Yorkshire at the start of the holiday period as well. So. And thank everybody on the Transport Committee who's been involved in this work.
Would it be possible to get, obviously we'll talk about performance, and when will we know how successful that has been? When will be the first point?
Yes, I think one of the things we can include in this report is feedback on that. In fact, to a certain extent, some of the data, and we'll, as I say, we'll find better ways of presenting this. Some of the data that's in this report now is the source data of the information. So how many people are travelling with using the young people's M cards, for example, is where we'll sort of gain that sort of performance data. So obviously what we want to do with this is to use the school summer holidays to actually encourage young people back to using the bus and give their confidence, so that we can go into the new academic year with at least as strong a level of bus use as we saw in 2019 amongst that group. And the aim, as I think we've said, and Councillor Groves has said, is to actually encourage particularly that group of 14, 15-year-olds to make more leisure journeys by bus. And one of the things this initiative has tried to focus on isn't so much those who go to school on the bus habitually, it's the ones who don't go to school who could use the bus for other journeys.
So when will we have the first data back to know how successful it's been?
We will have something back to you. I think the September meeting will give some early indications, and then the meeting after that, which I think is in early December, we should be able to see it coming through on the numbers.
That's super. Councillor Bolt, sorry to keep waiting.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, could I just make a request that when we talk about rail performance in future, we also we often seem to forget one rail operator, Grand Central, which 4 authorities, starting with yourself for the West Riding Service, coming through Murfield and then into Wakefield, those authorities, and passing through Halifax, of course, and hopefully at Ellen Station, just because it doesn't go to Leeds, it seems to get missed off the reports that we get. So can we ensure that we get that in future? It's a very vital service for the region, I think.
I'd like to think it was 100%, to be quite honest, because it doesn't come very often, does it? So I'd like to think they can get 1 or 2 services. So,
yeah, I'm sure
Dave, that's a very good point.
We can pick that up. That's is a slightly boring answer to that question. They're not a franchised operator, so don't provide the data in exactly the same way. But yeah, we can get something in for that.
We just need the exciting highlights of the data, Dave. We don't know to know the source of it. So, okay, so lovely. So any more questions or comments on that? Oh, sorry, Councillor Firth, I didn't see you indicating there.
Thank you, Chair. What we're doing for young people is absolutely fantastic. But how do you... Comms is the key to this. Promotion, 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 promotion. And how do you intend to do that going forward? It's really important.
That's a very good point. If people don't know about it, they won't use it.
Yep, and social media does seem to affect, I think Councillor Groves has mentioned a few times, the My Day ticket, which is a sort of ticket which we're actually reducing the price of this year, but we introduced last year. Some really effective targeted social media sort of took that off from nowhere in terms of use. So using social media does seem to work for that particular age group. But I think it's also important that people see out and about the right ticket to use, because it's important that parents and carers and other people are aware of it as well. So yeah, we'll need to. We have got a campaign going as well as a public launch.
And that needs to go through our local authorities as well. I'd suggest social media campaigns. Councillor Sahel.
Hi, thank you. I was just saying, just as well as social media, because you can target them whilst they are in school. So are you actively promoting it within the schools, within the colleges, just to target that age group rather than just relying on just social media?
We will do, yes. I mean, schools are a little bit difficult to reach at the moment, given everything else, but we will follow that up with material that can be used in schools as well.
So the next paper is school bus services. So I'd like to think that we've got some route through to schools through that service, to be quite honest. Surely there's something, some letters we send out or something to those people. Yes. So if we can piggyback on that kind of information, I think that's a very good point. Any more questions or comments on that? No, so I think we're just noting. Are we just noting that, Dave? Yes. Just noting that. Right, lovely. So we've noted that. Next item on the agenda is school bus services, as I said. So who's going to talk about
that? Right, I'll talk you through that. It's been quite a year for school buses, and this is. We generally give you an update around about this time of year. So, but this particular year has been challenging for all the reasons that the pandemic's brought, and schools been closed, and then but open for key workers. So we kept some buses going. So I think our school bus teams and the respective operators of buses and coaches are to a certain extent a little bit of unsung heroes around the pandemic response, because they've worked all the way through to get children to school, even when the schools were closed, apart from those that were travelling because they were the children of key workers. So this report really just brings you up to date with all the sort of machinations of how we managed that and how we dealt with that across the additional money that came from governments to put extra buses on, so we could have a level of social distancing on some of the services. Looking forward into the current year, our planning is assuming school attendance is back to normal from September, and so we're planning our usual summer sort of round of tendering and planning around what we know in terms of the schools going back. So the additional capacity that we've had for the pandemic will fall away unless things change. I think the other thing we're just updating you with is that because we didn't do any procurement of school buses last year, we've got a bit of a plan which we've given you the summary of in this report in terms of how we're dealing with that this year, and extending some contracts, retendering others. I think the final thing just to draw your attention to is this will see the end of the combined authorities' ownership of the yellow school buses that you might have seen around the region for about 15 years now. Reaching the end of their natural life. So our proposal in terms of the remaining buses that we have is that we've negotiated an arrangement with the operators of those vehicles so that they keep hold of them and keep running them. We transfer ownership to them, and they'll see the rest of their time out, and in return we'll get some financial benefit through holding the contract price. So it seems a mutually acceptable sort of device to manage the ownership of those vehicles going forward. So I'm happy to take questions, Chair.
I'm just going back to Councillor Chowdhury's point. It says in here, obviously, 21,000 children to and from school every day. There's got to be a route through to those young people to tell
Absolutely,
them about
yes, and we do lots of communication to schools, and in particular over the last year, as things changed almost on a weekly basis. There's lots of
make sure that flat fare stuff is in that.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, a lot of the users of the M card products are young people going to school. It's a cornerstone of how young people get to school by bus. In some respects, the challenge is to encourage those that don't, for various reasons, go to school on bus, that they could buy those day tickets when they're out and about with their friends on Saturdays and Sundays.
And of course, going back to Councillor Salam's point earlier in the meeting about safety, obviously a lot of young people are getting COVID at the moment, aren't they? It's the highest infection group, so yes. School buses and reassuring parents about safety, etc. Is that something we've got regard to?
Yes, I mean, I think all businesses and industries have adapted in terms of cleaning regimes, in terms of social distancing, in terms of screens and other precautions, and the school bus service is no different there.
Thank you very much. Councillor, I'm not quite sure if you're doing a fist salute there or you're putting your hand up, but you are putting your hand up. Councillor Campbell.
Thanks, Chair. Just a quick one on the yellow buses. The report says, in effect, we give the buses to the current operator. The current operator, in return, agrees to keep the price flat for 2 years. Is that just on the yellow routes or on all their routes?
It's on the routes that they actually operate those buses on. So that it's essentially, the previous batch of buses we sold. But that was 2-3 years ago when they had a better residual value. So we felt this was the most effective way of getting value back to the combined authority financially.
Just quickly to follow up on that, if for some reason or other the bus reaches the end of its life before 2 years, is there a guaranteed service at the price?
Oh, yes. I mean, the bus operator is still required to run that service. It won't be quite with that type of bus. And in some respects, that's what will happen over the next 2 years, is that those buses will move on or go out of service and be replaced by other vehicles. But the service will still continue.
Councillor Gorm.
Yes, on that, I mean, is there a sort of an exit strategy in terms of the clean air policy? I imagine these buses are going to be sort of Euro 3 or something like that, if you're lucky. Whereas we want to be at least Euro 6, I would have thought.
They actually have been retrofitted to Euro 6 standards, so that in terms of those buses are clean and air zone compliant. It's a fair question in terms of, obviously, in some areas at Bradford, for example, we've got a different discussion around the clean air zone and bus compliance, as we have done in Leeds. But to a certain extent, we're not, to be absolutely frank, we're not actually insisting on a Euro 6 bus on those particular contracts as replacement vehicles. We are looking at our sort of procurement process to move to Euro 6 vehicles, but we put a little bit of a stall on that because essentially this time for September of last year, we were basically trying to get hold of every bus we can in the region just to provide the capacity we needed during the pandemic. But we do need to go back and look at our standards and use that to bring up to clean air zone standards. So it's a good question that we'll need to build in.
Obviously, there's the tension between clean air and keeping the price down.
Yeah, and I think the answer to that tension is to do things over a realistic period of time and to set standards and a timescale to reach that standard.
So can we have a look at that? Because we should really be, obviously, procuring for the future, because it's not Bradford's January 2022, and other parts of the region, obviously, have also got poor air quality, so we need to be very careful about that. Buy for the future. Yes, Councillor Keith.
Chair, we can all remember being school governors when the buzzword was that kids were being taken to swimming baths in buses without seat belts on, and demonstrations from parents saying they wanted better standards of transport to take their kids backwards and forwards to school. And I presume these BMC Condor buses met that specification. What we need to also do is not just look in terms of the emissions of it, but to make sure that they are replaced with like-for-like buses. We're not to be getting better, not going back to old days.
They were a bit ahead of the day, actually, those buses, in terms of safety standards, and the industry sort of caught up in the intervening years, because, as some members may recall, we got a pretty big grant from government to buy those buses in the first place. So to start raising the standards ahead of the requirement for seatbelts and other things that came through.
Councillor Groves.
Chair, I think it's worth noting one of the challenges that we all face is the lack of manufacturing of buses. It's a real problem, not just in this country, but across Europe as well. So whilst we've got a major ambition to get, those clean vehicles on, there's surely an opportunity for companies to get into this market and employ local people on building these buses for the future.
Absolutely, and that's some of the, obviously we're going through this at the moment in Bradford, and there's some limitation on vehicles you can use, like refuse vehicles, for example. They don't make those in many shapes and sizes, so I can understand the constraints physically, but we do need to do our utmost on that point. So can we just check the buses that we've got and that we're thinking about the future well enough and taking the full advantage of the choice on offer? Councillor Salam.
There. Yeah, just going back to your point about buses with seatbelts. I mean, these buses have actually been fitted with seatbelts, but the other buses that are actually sometimes then used on these routes, if this bus breaks down, is a normal service bus. Unfortunately, they don't have seatbelts. Some meetings ago, we did actually present a report that every bus that in Yorkshire would have a star grading, whether it's a 3-star, 4-star, or 5-star. And most of these buses, but most of the operators actually use Euro 6 engines because they have actually been fitted with retro Euro 6 emission zones, because it's in their interest also. I mean, one of the other thing, going back to Kim's point, is manufacturing of buses, but also there's been a lot of cancellation of orders due to the pandemic and uncertainty around business models. But just yesterday, Nissan announced a new plant in Darlington, I think it is, of manufacturing batteries for these electric buses. That's new 2,000 jobs. So the batteries will be actually now manufactured in the UK. That would actually give a lot of operators an opportunity. Maybe these batteries would be actually much better in performance than some of the batteries on the market at this moment of time going forward. Also, cleaning of these buses and the cleaning regime. I mean, if you, from a personal experience, a school bus is forced cleaning after a trip to school because the bus has to be absolutely cleaned because, people, just young kids, they're throwing all sorts of rubbish in there. But we also use something called zonofogging, which actually stays on the surface for 28 days, but sometimes we do the school buses more than that. So that is, from the safety aspect, a lot more safer, because one of the things that we were absolutely baffled about was that the government never actually brought in a social distancing on school buses. They were just normal patronage, and that was very baffling for us. But safety-wise, kids. But going back to Susan's point, that a lot of young people are actually now contracting COVID-19, so we need to be careful. And talking to operators, that cleaning regime has to be rigid.
I think it's useful operational insight there. Thank you, Councillor Salam. Anything else before we close this item? No? Okay. Well, in that case, there's recommendations there. I think the only thing we said about the buses isn't in the clean air capacity of those, so we just want to make sure we add that in, I would say.
Yes, and we will come back to the committee to update you on where we are in terms of the emission standards of school buses. That might be something we actually build into the the network update paper as well, just to give you the
and all buses, to be quite honest, going forward. I think
yes,
there's something
we've
Wakefield
got,
mentioned the other day
we've got
as well.
those figures for standard buses. Yeah. It's a little bit more complicated for school buses because some of them are coaches and some of them are different types of vehicles.
So perhaps let's bring that as another item at a future meeting then about air emissions and buses, if that's okay with everybody. Lovely. In that case, can I just see all those in favour of that, please, endorsing that approach? Thank you very much. Thank you. So move on to the next item, item 11, Leeds City Region Transport Update. Lots of meetings in this paper, which we all do a lot of, I'm sure. Helen.
No problem. Thank you, Chair. This paper is an update of a number of different areas across Leeds City Region. The key things really to pull out in here is that the connectivity strategy engagement closed the start of June, and we have had over 8,700 responses to that, and we're just in the process of working those through to create a collated report, and from that point we use that to then update the connectivity strategy document. Other updates to note in there, we have now received the letter of guidance from Department for Transport around the walking and cycling capability funding, so we are now looking at shaping our bid around that, and that's for submission in early August. And Councillor Corshett may want to come in on some of that if she wishes. The other kind of key update in there really is around the Levelling Up Fund, and it's really just to note that the Combined Authority did submit to the Levelling Up Fund, and we submitted a package around Elland Rail Station and Halifax Bus Station, which was a combined package of 36 million, nearly £37 million, and we'll hear about that in the autumn through the spending review. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, I think probably congratulations, Roger, about the connectivity strategy and the consultation there. To get 8,700 responses is excellent. So it's good to see that it's really caught people's imagination and they're engaging with it, because obviously it's quite ambitious for the region, so that's good. So any questions, comments otherwise? Councillor Bolt.
Thanks, Chair. Just on the walking and cycling update on page 113, it talks about a pipeline of schemes. And I don't know if Taj is still the Bradford cycle champion this year, whether he or yourself can give me some local insight. Is Manchester Road one of the prioritised schemes? Because many cyclists from Kirklees seeking to go to the Dales have to go through Bradford. And from personal experience, Manchester Road is one of the least cycle-friendly roads that you can use to get in and out of Bradford. So if that can be, if there's any programme for that, for improving by superhighway or anything, it's both for tourism and for people who are working, it would certainly be welcomed by the cycling fraternity.
And that's actually through Councillor Slough's ward as well, actually. So he knows it well. I don't know, Councillor Rushaw, did you want to come in on that?
Well, I know Manchester Road will be part of a park and ride, obviously bus highway down there, so we'll be doing a lot of work looking at it, and we're looking at incorporating sort of segregated cycleways wherever we can on any scheme we do now. So I'm sure me and Taj can double check. I'd hate to say yes without knowing 100% for sure, but I know the route through to South Bradford's part of our local cycle walking infrastructure plan as well. So there's quite a lot of delivery of cycleways in that area, so I'm sure we can double check and let you know, Martin.
Thanks, Alex. And it would dovetail in with the sports village that is going up at Wyke, which has got a cycle track built in. So obviously, if people are going to use those facilities, you want them to be cycling to the cycling facility.
You'll be speeding around this track and then going up down Manchester Road through to the Dales. Indefatigable. It's very good. I'm impressed. Anything else on this item? Councillor Firth.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome this report. It's really comprehensive, but one thing is missing, can I comment on that, is electric charging points for both cars and cycles. And there's nothing on, and I just wondered if we could have an update on that, please.
Absolutely. I believe 88 is something that rings a bell. Have we got 88 in the put there? Is that right? Everybody's saying 88. Has anybody... Councillor?
We have got 88, but I think in terms, I'm not sure what they are in your own districts. Yeah, that's 88. Yeah.
I think the question is, well, have we ambitions for more, I think is the question. So I'm just looking to officers to my right.
Yeah, we can look at where we are on that programme and bring an update back next time. That's fine.
I think the answer is probably yes, we do have ambition for more.
You should do, because 88, okay, it's 88, but it's almost derisory, isn't it, in number terms? Because if we want to go forward with electrification, and for bikes as well, because they're getting very popular, electric bikes, we need to do more, very much more.
Absolutely. We're seeing a revolution in our transport system, aren't we? And we need to be ready for it. You're absolutely right. Councillor Graves?
Councillor Firth, I think one of the problems was in terms of the legal aspects around the charging points and the land, and the officer at Mark Hogger has done a lot of work on this. He said it's getting better, but he says that was one of the things that slows it down, is all those negotiations around the legal aspects of who owns the land. I know that the supermarkets, the Asda are getting them into places like Asda and other supermarkets are getting them into place, but I think it's really slow on residential streets. And I know when we had one fitted at our home, it took a whole day, but now I believe that in some people's homes, it's up to 2 hours. So things I think have moved on, but it would be good to bring a report back on that. From a combined authority
Because, of course, I mean, I don't know about other authorities, but every new house in Bradford has to have an electric charging point. I think we're all doing probably similar things now. So it's getting that infrastructure everywhere, isn't it? As you say, it's not just down to the combined authority, it's down to private developers, etc. as well. Interesting times. Councillor Bolt.
Thanks. Just developing that. Perhaps in that report we could include what local authorities are doing. I know Kirklees, through its housing, have just bought 10 electric vans for staff to use, although they don't think about how the ones who lived at home are going to charge them. But if we knew what each local authority was in terms of electric vehicles, it'd be a good benchmarking exercise, I think.
Yes, so I think we'll take that away and do some work on that. But it's all exciting stuff, isn't it, for the future? Absolutely. With that, yes, sorry, Councillor Buckley. Apologies.
I thought you'd seen me.
But then I've forgotten I'd seen you, so apologies. I'm still a newbie at this.
Two very brief things. I think Councillor Firth's absolutely right. It's such an important subject, and the numbers are very, very low. And it will be interesting when a report is brought back to harness it with what the private sector are doing, so we can actually look and see how many in total are being provided. But the brief point I wanted to make was about just coming back to the walking and cycling and cycle lanes on roads. If you actually drive out of our car park here and drive north and over the Sheepscar flyover, coming the other way into town, a cycle lane has been provided on the left. I haven't actually seen a cyclist in it yet, but no doubt the day will dawn. But it's 3 lanes of traffic, and it's often jammed with cars and vans and lorries, and travelling at 30, 40 miles an hour. The lanes are very, very narrow now. And I just wondered there must be some statutory guidance about how narrow a normal vehicle lane can be. It just seems to me that you're very, very close to fast-moving traffic, and I'd welcome any reassurance that there are limits on.
And it strikes me this is something the active walking group, cycling group, should perhaps take on to have a look at. You're absolutely right. What is the criteria for it? I'm not sure if you have got that to hand, Helen David. Is that something?
No, I think that's probably a highway engineer's answer, really. But I think it's and I can't speak for colleagues in the council. I wouldn't think it's compliant, but it's a fair point that's been made.
I think as we invest in more and more cycling infrastructure, there's a whole load of questions that come up. I mean, how do you maintain them in terms of, the cleanliness and any infrastructure that needs renewing? It brings a whole lot of cost, doesn't it? We've discussed that before, Councillor Groves.
I just come in, whilst I really welcome, electric charging points, I think we all need to recognise that actually we've got to try and get people out of cars. So there will be congestion as everybody converts to an electric car, and I would hope to see reallocation of road space for bus and for trams when they eventually arrive. So while I do welcome things moving forward, I think we've got to really think about what we want from a public transport system and be prepared to be quite brave and reallocate road space. Those lorries that you're talking about, you know, it plays into the electrification of, like, you know, the Calder Valley, Transpennine upgrade, to take those HGVs off the road as well and have freight. So I think it's a big conversation.
Of course, we've got targets around all those in the future to try and increase walking, cycling, etc. Councillor Bolt, we've got another paper and I've got 6 minutes.
Just supporting what Kim said there, and I would ask officers to review and scrutinise district schemes as come forward. The £77 million Cooper Bridge scheme that's just been promoted doesn't have any bus priority measures. There's slip roads to get all traffic around the roundabout, but the key point, as you say, Kim, is that we should be looking at these schemes for bus prioritisation. I think you're actually losing bus lanes when they're doing it. So if officers would look at district schemes and make sure that they're up to the highest standards.
I'm presuming you've taken that up with your highways officer in Kirklees. Okay. Right. Well, I'm needing to go on to now to the next item, if that's okay. I think that item was just for noting, wasn't it? That just looking at that. Lovely. So, summary of transport schemes. Agenda item 12. So these have already been through the investment committee and therefore have gone through recommendations, but they're just to be noted here. Has anybody got any comments or questions on any of these? No? Well, in that case, I might have responded a bit early. Okay, well, in that case, the report's noted. And then, sorry, Councillor Buckley, were you going to say something? Oh, I didn't miss you that time. Excellent. So just notes of the informal meeting. That is an informal meeting, so it's held remotely and it's not a proper meeting, so we just note those minutes. Is there anything on those minutes that anyone needs to say? No? Well, in that case, can I say thank... Oh, yes, Councillor Firth. Sorry.
It would be remiss of me not to... I've just seen the minutes, and that is, in fact, reminded me about Councillor McBride, who has made a massive contribution to this Transport Committee over many years, and it would have been remiss of me not to thank him, and I'm sure the whole of this committee would feel the same.
Absolutely, Councillor Firth, but I was in a meeting with him earlier this week, so I can't imagine he's gone very far. No, but he's still very much in harness in the service of the people of Kirklees and, as you say, does that very well. So absolutely, we thank him for his contribution. I'm sure Councillor Groves would say the same.
Absolutely, and his voice is still ringing in my head, and his legacy of Transpennine upgrade is something that won't go away, but he's been tremendous. You know, I've sat with the other portfolio holders at investment committees. He really fights his corner for Kirklees, and you know, he'll be missed on the Transport Committee. Really enjoyed working with him, and welcome Councillor Firth back. Chair, could I just basically say thank you to Democratic Services for setting this up. This is the first meeting, the second meeting I've been in person, and it's been really enjoyable, despite Councillor Buckley thinking that I always have a go at him. I'm sat in a Conservative seat, I'm wearing blue, and I think at the last event I went with you, I let you take the cakes home. I refused them. So that.
Oh dear, cake. Cake gates. Let's not go there. So yes, absolutely, Councillor Groves, point well made. Thank you very much for organising this meeting so that we've been able to do it safely and well and within 90 minutes. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody. I shall see you at the next meeting, whenever that is. Thank you.